Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Minds of Moria podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and today I have with me Trey
Hello.
and very special guest, Eli.
Hi, glad to be here.
And today, as you probably guessed from the title, we are talking about the great army of Lothlórien. So, we're going to be breaking this down kind of into three different segments. We're going to be going into the profiles, looking about them, discussing kind of how they work, and then going into strategies and tactics, both for and against Lothlórien. And then lastly, each of us are going to share some lists that we've wrote for it. So if we want to first start around and go around, because there's basically three main elf factions. There's Rivendell, there's Mirkwood, and there's Lothlórien, and each kind of have their own rules and interactions. But like your guys' first impression and things that you think stand out when it comes to Lothlórien.
I think thing that stands out to me the most is the flexibility of list building. Most of the other lists, you've got one, maybe two builds. Like Halls of Thranduil, you've got the Thranduil Legolas at higher points you add in Tariel, or a captain if you like the March that much. In Rivendell, it's normally Elrond, Arwen, and then like a captain or Lindir. Or you go like Arwen and the twins and like Glorfindel or something. There's really only two builds. This one, there's so much more flexibility on what you can do, and all of them can do totally different things. So I think the one thing that this list has is flexibility, which I think the one thing it lacks is a massive hard hitting hero. But I think that's one thing that we're going to be talking a lot about today is what it can do and what it's not as great at. But I have a feeling Eli will have much more to say than I do about this list. So
Yeah, for the three out of the three elf factions, I view Lothlórien as more maybe the Angmar of good. It's all about controlling the game and controlling the other the other person's experience, for better or worse.
Lothlórien is really fun too, because I think they did a fun job of creating a lot of different heroes and troops, where it does feel quite unique to all the rest of them. But if we just want to jump straight into the actual army list itself, so there's only one army list for Lothlórien. There's no other fun stuff. You get one build, which is kind of similar to last edition, and it comes with two special rules. The first one being that friendly Lorien models gain the resistant to magic special rule, which is pretty good. And then the maybe useful one of friendly Lorien models reroll to hit rolls of one when making a shooting attack if the target of the shooting attack is unable to see them due to the effects of an elven cloak. So basically, if you can't see me, I get to reroll ones to hit, which is, I guess, really useful when you come into all pajama elves, but I think most of the time this rule is not as useful.
It kind of incentivizes you to try to run all your bows in pajama elves.
Yeah.
Just to
which I think
squeeze that little extra shooting.
I think that's pretty cool, honestly. I do like that they're at least teasing you to do that.
Yeah.
Is it the competitive option? We will find out.
Alrighty, so
Um,
there are a couple heroes in here. Who wants to start with Galadriel?
I can, considering
All
there are much more entertaining heroes that the people that actually have much more experience with the list will want to talk about. I'll take the boring leader Galadriel. I'm kidding. She's great.
right.
I actually really like what she does. So she's movement six, fight six, shoot value three plus, which as far as I know, that does jack squat. She's
Yeah, I don't think
strength
it matters
three,
for anything.
No.
yeah, defense three, annoying, but honestly, it's not that bad considering the tools she has. She's one attack, three wounds, three plus courage and intelligence, three might, six will, three fate. She is unarmed but has Nenya, so she rerolls the fate. She's got heroic channeling, massive. Heroic defense, great. Resolve, if you're using that, you're probably playing something like an Angmar that will. I don't see you using resolve much when you already have resistant and so much will. But her options, she can take the Mirror of Galadriel, which is a heavy object and is D8 3 wounds, deploys within 6 inches of her, and basically it can, if Galadriel or Celeborn is in base contact with it, then you may add a 1 to your roll for priority. And then in the end phase, one friendly hero model within 6 inches may restore their fate to full starting value. The other thing she can do is upgrade warriors, the Galadrim warriors to Lorien Guard, and they reroll 1. She has Terror, Woodland Creature, gains a free point of will at each turn. She has Compel on a 3+ with a range of 12, Transfix on a 3+, range of 12, Blessing of the Valar, 4+, range of 12, Blinding Light, 4+, Fog of Disarray, 4+, and Foil Magic, 12-inch range on a 4+ as well. For 125 points, all things considering, she's really cheap for what she does. It's really the cost comes on when you tack on the mirror. For me, that's what I see. And I
I
think
agree, but the mirror is so good.
it
That
It,
is.
+1 priority is insane.
I think
And I
someone in our league ran some sort of number, but I think it was like upwards of almost like a 16 or 20% increase of the amount of times you'll win priority with the mirror versus not, which especially in Lothlórien when you don't really want to be calling moves and priority does matter a lot with this list, it's super big.
here's my rule: if you're taking Galadriel, take the mirror. And heads up, in the one list that I did right with Galadriel, she does not have the mirror, so I'm being such a hypocrite right now. But I do really like the mirror, especially if you're running any of those lists that have the sentinels, lots of bows, any of the throwing weapons. I think that's just exponentially better for you simply because you get to control the board even more while you already have massive board control with shooting, which I think is just a massive tool.
Yeah, I think it kind of runs into a points issue. I think you probably don't run the mirror under 500. You probably don't
Yeah.
have enough
Mhm.
points to get the enough bodies. But I think above 500, like Lothlórien has this like 20-point hero select, like mini hero selection. It's the mirror, the sentinels, extra banners, or knights, and those are all competing for those kind of 25 points per model cost. So I can see not taking it at higher points if you're taking one of those other tools, but it's just really powerful, especially if you're going shooting.
Yeah. She works really well as like that backline caster that's gonna transfix the big hero every turn. And I think like as terms of last edition, whereas Blinding Light got worse because you can't really like channeling it doesn't last it forever. But I think like the fun spells of like Fog of Disarray or even Foil Magic, like there's a lot of things she can do even if you're not directly engaging that I think will provide some benefit to your line. And also, like, if you need her to be, with the mirror and rerolling fate, she can sit in front of a pretty big hero, and even if you need to call defense, can tank very reliably for a long time. There's one really fun story, I think, when Trey, Andrew, and I were over at my house at like 2 a.m. or something. We're like, all right, we're gonna put Galadriel with the mirror against the King of the Dead and see how long it takes for the King of the Dead to one-shot her. And I think, I kid you not, it took like an hour and a half of just straight rolling before she finally succumbed. So if you put the mirror behind her and you really don't want a hero to get anywhere, she can just stand in their face and do that.
I have a completely opposite story. The last time I took Galadriel with the mirror, a single Horadrim archer shot her with full fate and took off a wound.
Ooh.
It was
Ooh.
tragic. Through blinding light. I was like, this is a god Harad warrior.
Oh, that's hilarious. That did happen to you one time, Michael. Random warrior of Minas Tirith from
um,
Andrew's. I don't even know what list he was running. I think he was like a
I don't remember.
Boromir list. One warrior beat her, did a wound, and she failed all 3 fate.
Yeah. It's when you just start rolling the ones and twos and you're like, all right, I have a feeling how this is gonna get going now. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I think if you
Reliable
there's
leader.
part very good as well.
And you're only hero of legend in the list, which does matter for lead from the front.
Matters for lead from the front. I think the other thing that it really helps with is Lothlórien is one of those lists where it really does like taking a lot of elven bodies, and her just having that large warband is really, really useful. I think it's really flexible because I think you could run her and Celeborn anywhere between 500 points to 700 points with just those two heroes, like just with just those two heroes and their warbands, and it's just got a lot of flexibility. which I think is really useful.
I think her best magical power is probably Compel, because aside from the Sentinels, I mean, they're a lot more reliable than the Sentinels in
Yeah,
moving
yeah,
an enemy's piece.
completely
And I
agree.
think a small note that helps a little bit, because last edition too, when you took Galadriel, you're always like, oh, great, I'm running into contest, and then you deal with that. But because contest has changed too, you also don't ever mind her having as your leader, because you can just pick someone else. So
Yeah.
I think the one new weakness she has is Wither, because she's only strength
mm.
3. An Angmar Shaman span, or what are the Rise of the Necromancer with Musger, and or did they get Musger? I don't think they get. I mean,
The
I think
Necromancer
Sauron just
has
has Wither.
Wither. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, she's pretty good.
Okay. Celeborn. Who wants to take Celeborn? I say we give that one to Eli since
yeah, sure.
that's like
I
his
can handle
boy.
Celeborn. So Celeborn has a pretty similar stat line to Galadriel, with move 6, fight 6, 3 up shooting value, but he does have a higher point of strength and defense, coming in at 4. He's got 1 attack, 3 wounds, 3 up courage, and a 4 up intelligence. So he's not, this is why he's not leading Lothlórien. He's got 3 might, 3 will, and 3 fate. Just like Galadriel, which I don't know if we mentioned, he does have. She's Lady of Lorien and he's Lord of Lorien, so they each get a free will point a turn, which is new to Celeborn. He has Terror and Battle Wisdom, which is maybe the coolest thing. It is a passive ability, so you
Oh,
can't shut it off unless you kill him. But friendly Lothlórien warriors within 3 get a +1 bonus of wound when making strikes. So just doesn't apply to heroes, but it's very nice. He's got heroic channeling, heroic defense, and heroic strike as his 3 actions. And his spells are transfix on a 3 up, and then Aura of Dismay, Enchant Blades, and Writhing Vines on a 4 up.
yeah, he has gotten way better from last edition. He still, unfortunately, isn't the fighter that I think we all want him to be, and he lost his armor. But what he lost, he gained, and now he's a pretty good spellcaster, and just decided to give Lorien this massive +1 to wound bubble. Like I say, massive, 3 inches isn't that big, but it is very important, and I think something they added a lot for these elf factions, for like Mirkwood, Threnwell does a similar thing as well, is even with the two-handed weapon changes, there's a lot of hitting power now between two-handing and +1 behind these buffs that these elves can really punch through and do a lot of damage, and Celeborn can just reliably sit back, cast a spell, and do that. And also I've seen Eli, you do this to great effect, which I think is really cool, is he does have strike and fight 6. So he
Yep.
can sneakily
Yep.
go into something and strike up and just have his warrior buddies behind him just absolutely mince whatever he goes into.
Yeah, with the heroic strike and the heroic defense, he's a really nice. Like, it almost sucks to also have heroic channeling because you want to use your might for all of your things. You wish you had more might on Celeborn, because he really wants to be able to do anything.
He's super flexible. I think that's the thing that I really like with him. He can do anything. Like he can be a leader. He's got the D4. D4 isn't great, but he's still got the 3 fate, 3 wounds. So like all things considering, that's fine. He's got the magic to do work. Like just throwing a transfix a turn, eventually it'll start wearing down people's will. And once they do that, then you can start throwing, oh, I can start throwing a 2 dice, 3 dice. Or even if you really need a transfix, like in the next 2 turns, throwing a 3 dice out there. Then they have to resist, otherwise they're cooked. Then the next turn you can follow it up with like a 2 dice. He's got flexibility, he's got repetition that he can do in that front. And then I really do like the strike combo with the warriors, because like even if you just have a few pikes in your list, throwing, even if you don't have enough room to put more guys into him, just him with 2 pike supports, those 2 pikes can do a lot of damage to heroes. And I think that's the biggest thing is the +1 to wound. A lot of other lists, Easterlings, it's just the front guy that gets the +1 to wound. It's like if you're in combat, you get the +1 to wound. For him, it's just all of them. So like if you have like a little pike deep wall of like some front guys two-handing, then pikes behind them with a banner sport, that's 4 dice essentially with fight 6 plus 1 to wound with 3 of them plus 2 to wound on the one up front. That's very good. Um, and
Yeah.
and if the guys in front are the Lothlórien guards, they're also re-rolling ones, so it's just like they can deal so much damage. Like if you're losing a fight, you're basically dead. And the issue is against Lothlórien when they're fight 6 having 3 dice, they're going to win a lot. And when they win, they're just going to kill. So the issue obviously is, do you want to pike deep? Because if you lose, you're trapped. But on the other hand, fight 6 or 3 dice 4 with a banner is pretty reliable. And I think there's just a lot of options for what you can do with Celeborn, which I think is his biggest sell.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of just cool combinations with the rest of the army. I mean, his plus 1 to wound is pretty obvious, but Aura of Dismay can
Yeah.
give you that little courage debuff, and especially with the
Yep.
changes to the Sentinels to this edition, or you can have an entire terror wall with -1 courage, and you're just
Yep.
an evil army.
Yeah.
And
I would say
right, yeah,
one of the other things that I don't even think I really picked up on, I would say if there's any single model in the list that benefits the most from the resistant to magic, it is him. Because only
yeah.
having the 3 base store, resistant to magic him is just like a cherry on top. It's like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And Writhing Vines is
Yeah.
phenomenal at shutting down, like, let a cav army charge you, and then you
Mm-hmm.
just plop that Writhing Vines down and turn off their bonuses, which is always pretty nice. Or even just for the movement to like
Yeah.
steal
Mm-hmm.
an objective or a prize and then toss that down and scamper away. It's always nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also seen some really cool instances where they'll use them to hold up gaps where you then have your throwing weapons and bows that can just pin them. It's great. It's just there's so many fun things. Michael, I've seen do a lot of fun stuff with Writhing Vines as well. Some funky disengages. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, writhing vines is so underrated, and I think we didn't talk too much about this with Galadriel, but I think if anyone wants to pay the 1 point to upgrade the reroll ones, it's gonna be the guys in Celeborn's Warband, because a lot of the time, if you're two-handing, you're getting the +2 to wound, you're winning like 3s and 4s, and then you roll the 1, and you're like, ha, I can reroll that. So again, Lothlórien is pressed for points because they're like, there's so many fun tools and stuff you can put in there. But I think if you want to take Lothlórien guard, I would probably put the vast majority of them in Celeborn's Warband.
Michael, I think you get to take Haldir, and then we can just we'll kind of go for all 3 brothers, but I'd say start with Haldir. I say read his profile, then read the other 2 profiles, and then compare them more than just talk about them each as individuals. Since I think it's 3 sides of like a pyramid. It's just they do very similar things, but all in their own unique way. Uh,
Yeah.
so I say Michael, lead us off with Haldir, and then we can just go down the line.
All right, so we have the three brothers, and the first up is Haldir, who I'm sure we'll get into why I personally think he's the best brother. But he starts out at fight 6, shoot value 3 up, which this time it does matter. Strength 4, defense 4. Oftentimes he's not going to stay at that. 2 attacks, 2 wounds. Courage and intelligence of 4 up. 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate. Very rare nowadays that we see 3-1-1, but he was able to keep that. He has an Elven made hand and a half sword, and he has expert shot, sharpshooter, woodland creature, and one final blow, which is a cool special rule. Basically, if he dies, he gets to make a strength 4 strike on each model that was involved in combat, and he can use his might to up these rolls. So if he dies with might and you roll a 4 or a 5 and you want to might that up, you can. His heroic actions are accuracy, strength, and heroic strike. So Howler, I think, is pretty similar, if not almost identical, to last edition, but he still seems the same as he can shoot his bow twice a turn. He has 3 might. He gained sharpshooter now, which is a little bit better. And he has heroic strike, which again is pretty rare on this list, but pretty valuable as well.
I think the hand and a half weapon is also a little sneaky that he has that as a bonus because
Hmm.
um, Lothlórien really struggles with any heroes that are super killy, And so being able to two-hand and get that +1 to wound on a strength 4 model it's nice.
Yeah, it's really good. I'll just quickly run through the other two brothers. Next we have Orifim, who last edition everyone kind of left him in the dust, and he's gotten a little bit better this edition. He is also fight 6, shoot value 3 up, which doesn't matter. Strength 4, defense 6, 3 attacks, 2 wounds, courage and intelligence of 4 up. And he's 2 might, 1 will, and 1 fate. He has heavy armor and elven hand weapons because, according to GW logic, if you have 2 swords, you're obviously better at fighting. So, um, his special rules are Within Creature and Whirl of Blades, which is if he rolls a natural 6 when making a duel roll, he can double the amount of strikes that he would normally take. And he can't, double against a trapped model. But it is a natural 6, so he can still benefit that from a banner for the dual roll, but he can't might that up. And
I will
his
say
all
there's a weird interaction with that whirl and blade and trapped. Some people, so he's got 3 attacks normally. The rule says these strikes will not benefit for striking a trapped model. So some people think that if you're trapping or striking a trapped model, your base attacks double, and then you get an extra 3. So you get 9 attacks against a trapped model. That's how it was ruled at Adepticon. So if you are playing Orifin, you might want to check how it's being handled wherever you're going to be playing. So.
I would agree with the Adepticon's ruling just because it specifically says that these strikes, like the doubled ones, or at least what it looks like to me, wouldn't be doubled. So I think the 9 there would be the correct calling, but that is something where there is ambiguity. So I think you'll get some random TOs that may say otherwise. So I think it's always worth checking in your area.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I don't think it makes like 9 attacks versus 6 against a trap model when you roll a 6. I don't think it actually makes him that broken. So I
He's
don't think
strength.
it's a problem.
He's strength 4. He doesn't get like +1, +2 to wound or anything. It's like it's not like you have like a Witch King that all of a sudden gets 3 extra dice to
Yeah,
wound you when he's like strength 6 with like enchanted blades. It's like, although that would be nasty if you paired Orphan on a trapped model with Celeborn's enchanted blades. Like 9 at dice, re-rolling all failed to wound would be gross.
yeah. He is the main damage dealer in this army.
And actually, I want to pick your mind about this, Eli, because I'm pretty sure I think it was you that were the one that said this, that pointed out the fact that he pretty much just does the same thing the troops do, just worse, and for 85 points.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And
Yeah,
because I think that was you that I heard say that at Adepticon, and I don't disagree at all. Because the one thing is, it's like if he had strike, I would be like, absolutely no, no, he's great. But because he doesn't have strike, what is he going to be? He's just going to be going into troops and mincing them. The issue is he's 85 points. He doesn't get +1 to wound. All of your other troops do, and they can get the same fight value, the same 3 attacks, but all of them with modifiers.
yeah,
Yep, for 85 points, you could probably have 8 Galadrim warriors and a couple of guard in there and have more attacks and wounds.
Yeah.
yeah. So I'll just quickly address the last brother too. I used him a bit last edition, and I really like him. It is Rumil, and he is fight 6, strength 4, defense 7, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage and intelligence of 4 up, 2 might, 1 will, and 2 fate, which is pretty big. And he comes with heavy armor, shield, and an elven weapon. He has Within Creature, and his special rule is Swift Parry, which allows him to basically force an enemy to re-roll a dice in the dual roll. But this must be done before other re-rolls and before other might points, which is super powerful also when you pair it with his heroic action of heroic defense. So if you're in a meta that loves to play with Balrogs, just bring a Rumil and throw him in, and the first time the Balrog rolls a 6, just make him re-roll it.
I actually think that Lothlórien was a little bit hurt when the Balrog got nerfed because Rumil is such a good answer to the Balrog because the Balrog player now has to roll 2 6s in order to beat you. You technically give them another die, but the odds still decrease dramatically because if they don't roll a 6 on the first initial set, you're probably rolling a 6 with Rumil and his buddies. Then you add Celeborn and all the two-handers. It's very
Yeah,
exciting.
Rumil is really good. And yeah, you pair that with the defense, he can stall out most heroes in the game pretty reliably.
I
I
think one
think
other
the
thing we should say is that Rumil and Orthan are 85 points, and Haldir
Yes.
starts at 70, and then you have to
Hmm.
buy his bow, elven cloak, and heavy armor. So they can be
Yes.
85 points, but you could also take a budget Haldir for 70.
Yes.
and I
Which I
think
feel
this. Sorry for butting in, Michael. The one thing I
you're
want to
good.
point out is Rumil has the defense 7. He's the only model in the entire list that has that. And from personal experience playing all mounted Minas Tirith, just having a captain level hero that's defense 7 is massive. I'll cite one game. I was playing against a Glorfindel, and obviously this was before Glorfindel had like the easy two-handed. I threw a captain into him and he did not die. Glorfindel fought him and was like knocked him prone like 8 times, did not kill him. He was down to 1 wound and the captain just did not die before Aragorn got over and just wiped up Glorfindel. And it's just like defense 7, like even the heroic defense aside, just defense 7 is very good. And when he's your only option for it in the list, that's a big selling point for me, honestly.
And two fate as well. So if you're
Yeah.
running the mirror, then
Yeah.
you've got infinite two fate on someone who you're throwing into a tough hero or a Balrog or just even into the front line tanking troops for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really good. And I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, but we can also, if we want to talk about now, they're all kind of around the same points cost again, how there you can take for budget. But a lot of times you'll grab either Celeborn or Galadriel, and you'll be like, all right, who do you really want to pair up with the brothers? And I know Eli, you have a lot of experience running all of them in basically the same list. So how would you rank the brothers in which order you think they should be taken?
Well, I think Orphan's the worst. So I think it's really a choice between Haldir and Rumil. And I think if you're taking, I think if you're not taking Galadriel, you probably have the opportunity to take two brothers. So I would just take Haldir and Rumil. But if you're taking both Galadriel and Kelborn, then you already have a source of strike in Kelborn, and you have a decent amount of might already. So I think Rumil is that really good third. Um, so yeah, I think it also is a toss up between your meta and if you know locally what's going to be there. I've kind of come around, and I kind of like Haldir a little bit better into the Men of the West matchup. I think Strike is just a little bit. I think it's just a little bit better into Guahir and Aragorn. Um, so I kind of prefer Haldir right now, but I think Rumil's still really good.
Yeah, I think I agree with all those. And the important thing to note about all these five heroes is sadly, none of them have heroic march. So the only way you
Yeah.
want to get in March will be in the next two captain profiles. Trey, you want to take those?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, they're pretty similar. I don't like that the Galadriel captain can't take a shield because I love D7 captains
It's
a
so
lot.
sad.
So I'll just start off with the Galadriel captain. So the armored one, movement 6, fight 6, shoot value 3 plus, strength 4 plus, or strength 4, defense 6, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage and intelligence 4 up, 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate, heavy armor, elven hand and a half weapon, heroic march, and can take up elf bow for 5 points. He does have sharpshooter, which is very useful, and has woodland creature. Um, I'll just jump
Yep.
through and read the next one, unless there's anything I want to say specifically on the armored captain. I was just thinking read through them both and compare.
He
Yeah.
doesn't start with a
Um,
bow.
he
So
does
that's
No,
one.
he
not.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Starts out at 70, so
The next one starts out at 65 and does come with the bow. So we've got the Lothlórien captain, fight 6, shoot value 3 plus, strength 4, defense 4 instead of defense 6, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4, intelligence 5 up. So obviously they're not putting the smartest and brightest on their patrols. They've got 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate, the same hand and a half weapon, elven bow, and the elven cloak with march and woodland creature. Oddly enough, their patrolmen do not have sharpshooter, while their heavily armored random captains do have sharpshooter. But yeah, there we are. For me, the first thing that jumps out is pretty much, do you want the elven cloak and the bow for 10 points less, or do you want the D6 and the elven bow for 10 points more? Like that's the difference for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of these guys is going to be an auto include pretty
I
much
think
in
you
any
need the march,
Lothlórien
yeah.
army. Yeah, you have to have march, and you're not fast except for one warrior mounted model. So I think you need march.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think there's either any wrong answer here because I think both of them are actually very, very solid. It's just like they edge each other out in slightly different ways, which I think mostly comes down to play style. So if you like having your captain be in combat a lot, I would not take the Lothlórien captain. But if you like having them kind of just be an optimistic hitter of, oh, I'm not going to really have him here, but I'm going to hold him 3 inches from the battle line, and whenever I want this optimistic heroic combat or something to sling something around the lines, then I commit. Then I would say go for the Lothlórien captain because that elven cloak will be really nice in that instance. So I think a lot of it's play style for choosing your
Yep.
captains.
Saving 10 points, I think, is also huge. And automatically coming with a bow at 65. It's nice to just have him as a might caddy for moves and marches in the
Yeah.
back. Yeah, like you said, don't throw him into combat.
Yeah, I think honestly sometimes it comes down to like your style because if you're running, a full Wood Elf army and there's just this one armored captain, it looks a little bit weird. So sometimes it can just come down to stylistic preferences as well, but I think again either choice is fine.
Which that being said, going back to style, we're going to backtrack a bit to the three brothers. I think Orifin's my favorite just because I like the model the most. In gameplay, he's absolutely the worst, but I like the model.
Orphan's got the coolest model. The
He's
swords
a
in the air and the cape swirling.
Yeah,
It's worthy.
it's pretty cool.
yeah,
Okay,
I do like
Michael,
that.
I think since I've seen you do a lot of work with the Lothlórien warrior, I think that's the end of the heroes, right?
No, we
Yeah.
have the Stormcaller.
Oh,
Oh, I
mine,
keep forgetting about the
mine.
Stormcaller. Trey. Trey really wanted this one, so he's gonna double up. Take the
I
Stormcaller.
Stormcallers make me so happy. I don't think anybody can understand how happy Stormcallers make me. Um, so Loki, I forgot that it's in Legacies. So we're gonna pull up the Legacies document really quick. There we go. Uh, Perfect. So the Stormcaller comes in at the totally average Elven fight value. I believe they're fight 5 here. No, there we are.
Yeah.
They are fight 5, movement 6, shoot value 3 plus, strength 3, defense 4, 1 attack, 2 wounds, courage 5 plus, intelligence 5 plus, 1 might, 3 will, 1 fate. They have armor and a elven hand weapons, plural apparently.
But
Um,
where's their 2 or 3 attacks, huh?
that's what I'm
Yeah, come
saying.
on.
If they gave a Lothlórien Stormcaller 2 attacks, I would be overjoyed. They have heroic channeling, which is actually very good. They have woodland creature, powers of nature. So whenever roll a natural 6 on the casting test, they regain all of the will that they spent during that casting test. So not just the one that they roll a 6 on, which I think is very unique. They have Call Winds, range 12 on a 3 plus, Enchanted Blades, 12 inches on a 4 plus, Writhing Vines on themselves, obviously with a 4 plus, and they are obviously in Lothlórien. Um, I actually think this edition, they did actually get a slight buff in the regards of, I think they benefited from the fact of how the list plays.
Yeah.
Having Celeborn be much more of a caster really helps them because Stormcallers, you want to be that second and sometimes even their third caster. And I actually think they're very solid this edition simply because channeling now is super reliable. So if you just go, okay, transfix, I say if you're playing a lot of Men of the Wests, these guys are actually very good. Because Gwai here really does not like call wins at all.
Mm-mm.
Most big heroes don't. So if you can, even like an Amdur or something, if you can draw out the will with like a Compel or a Transfix from Galadriel, then hit it with a call wins, he's going to be prone off his horse and D6 inches away, right? You can do a lot of funky things with it. The challenge obviously is what are you dropping to take them? Um, and in that case, oftentimes it tends to be a brother simply because you really want that march. So at 800 points, I would say they have play taking. At that point, I would go Galadriel, Celeborn, a Stormcaller, and a captain, which just makes it a really funky style play. But I do think it does have some play because if you can get a hero prone with the call wins, throw Celeborn in for a strike with some pikes, you can do some serious damage. So I think there's some play. It goes back to that what Eli said. It's actually now it's like I actually totally see it. It plays like Angmar. It really does control your opponent, and it's just a tool that they have to worry about. Because if you do one channel, then you're down to two will. You need another one, you throw the two will. If you randomly get that six, all of a sudden you have two more will. It's like obviously it's dice, so you can never rely on that factor. But if you do, they can be so damaging if they just roll even one set of sixes on a two dice call
I,
wins.
I think that's one of the big things that's tough about Lothlórien is if your dice are hot, it's an unstoppable army because it rolls.
Yeah.
You roll a six and you're like, sorry, your stuff doesn't work. I got all my stuff back and we're killing you.
Yeah.
So it's a very
Yeah.
feast or famine. If your dice are hot, these guys are doing really well. But if you're not winning priority with the +1, if you're not getting your sixes off, yeah, it can really start to fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you nailed that front. It is one of those lists where it would be interesting. I think the points value, I think this is going to be the big thing when we start talking about the list as a whole. Points value for this list means so much. One, just because of the variety of ways it's built. I think at 600, there is like, this is the most optimal way to run it. I think at 800, there's like three optimal, like different ways that you could theoretically run it. But I think points values mean a lot of what you can and what you can't take, which I think is actually really cool for a list because I hate it when it's like, okay, now it's 800 points, add a captain and five more bodies. It's like, okay, it's not as fun or and interactive. Whereas here, it's just like, okay, I can take another brother. Oh, I could also take a Stormcaller. I could take a second captain and have a lot of marches. Or I could go, I'm actually going to go more troops, add some more pikes, add a second banner, and just do a lot of pikes and fight six with tons of rerolls. There's a lot of flexibility, and I think that the Stormcaller is just another tool in that.
Yeah. And one thing I think to note, just because my brain went there originally when I was playing Bro Gear, but channeling unfortunately does not count as a natural six, so you don't get the will back because you're not technically rolling a dice. But so that would have been cool if you could do that. But yes, I think the Stormcaller really does have a place, and Call Wins is so good for so many different reasons.
So here's a question: Are you risking a 3 die call wins before you channel?
Oh,
I think it depends on the situation. Honestly, if you're in a situation, this is what I would do. If I'm in a situation where if I really don't make something big happen, if I need two massive call wins, I would go on ahead and throw the three dice first and hope for the six. If I don't get it, you're probably going to be cooked anyways. I would do it in the situations where it's like if I get it, then I have play in the game. If I don't, I've already lost. So I would do it in those Hail Mary moments. Otherwise, three dice, it's like a 50% chance or something. That's just
So
not
yeah,
great odds.
yeah, it's not great.
it's yeah, it's pretty risky. Some of
Okay,
these like three will casters, and you see channeling, and you're like, "Ooh, I'm just gonna use that every time." Sometimes you don't always want to use channeling with him. Like you like, I want to chase that six, and just having a might point that you can use for a move instead of using like one of the brothers or a Galadriel might point also can be useful. So I wouldn't say channeling is an auto take for him, but if you really want to get off a
correct.
lot of call wins, then you might go to that option.
It's a
I
42%
was,
chance. All right, how
yeah.
lucky you feeling?
Here's the thing. I think that's totally fair because even if you just get one off on a five, if you've already blown off a lot or all of your enemies will, that's still going to do a bunch of damage. Like that can be detrimental, especially if you have the fight six pikes that can do all of that damage. Like there's still so much play that can be had, even if you get one spell out of him and then a heroic move. Like they still do that role. And then the other thing is like there's still two wounds with a fate point. They can hold up a little area for a bit, especially if you bring the mirror around, it brings a little bit more reliability to hold up even like a captain for like two, maybe three turns if you get lucky. I think there's lots of flexibility that they can bring. I wouldn't I would tend to not bring them at anything lower than 750 unless it's a very specific list. Like, okay, 600, a captain, a stormcaller, and Galadriel. I could see you having a lot of fun with that. I wouldn't call it the most competitive option, but I do think that you could have some fun.
I agree.
Yeah. Also, just the combination of call winsing someone, knocking them back, knocking them over, and the next turn putting a writhing vines right in front of them. It's just like you can just keep someone out of the game for like 3 turns. So that's pretty fun there. But if you want to
But
go,
even the consistency, this is the last thing. On call wins, this is the one thing that I've found with Fornost. The consistency of call wins, saying I'm going to knock you back. If you roll anything higher than a four, they're not going to be able to charge you the next turn. So it's not just one turn they're out of combat, it's two. Because if you roll a four or higher, they have to stand up, which takes 3 inches of move, and then they can only move 3 inches. So like if you roll a four or higher, they're just out for 2 turns. Like that's massive, especially in Lothlórien, where the only thing that can slow down that wall of troops with +1 to wound is enemy heroes that are like fight six, fight seven, that can legitimately put some damage off on the troops.
Well, call wins is automatically 3 inches plus D3. So
Oh,
you're
so
always
then
going to get four high. You always are going to get
yeah.
4, 5, or 6 inches.
Oh
So
wow, I thought it was D6
it's
still. Oh, that's
it's
great.
yeah,
changed. It's good.
yeah, 3 plus D3. So
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Okay. Michael, you want to go into the wood elves?
Yeah, I think I'll take the Wood Elves and Galadrim at the same time because I think
Okay.
it's an okay comparison, and then we can handle the specialized units. So the Galadrim Warrior, cough cough, Rivendell Warrior, it's basically the same. Um, they are movement 6, fight 5, shoot value 3 up, strength 3, defense 5, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage and intelligence of 5 up. They have heavy armor and a hand and a half elf weapon, and they have a lot of options. They can either get a war horn and an elf bow, which if you're taking that, you're a little crazy. Yeah. You have a banner, which you're gonna be taking quite a bit, for 25 points. An elf bow for 2 points, shield and elven spear for 2 points, an elven spear for 1 point, and a shield for 1 point. And they have woodland creature. So pretty solid overall. Their companions, the Lothlórien warriors, come in at 1 point less. They're at 8 points, and they are fight 5, shoot value 3 up, strength 3, defense 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 5 up, intelligence 6 up. Because the more time you spend in the woods, apparently the less intelligent you are. They have an elven hand and a half weapon and an elven cloak, and their options are banner for 25 points, elf bow for 2 points, elven throwing weapons for 2 points, and a wood elf spear for 1 point. And a wood elf spear, which ironically enough is an active special rule. That's a little bit weird. When they're armed with the spear, they can use the shielding rule, and they have woodland creature as well. So two staples, and I think generally pretty cheap. Elves have always been kind of statistically on the better side just because Fight 5 is incredibly good. They get good courage and intelligence. Even with the Gladrim, you get good defense, and you automatically either come with both a hand and a half weapon that's elven made or an elven cloak, just straight out. So this is just value, and Lothlórien, surprisingly enough, can put out a lot of bodies on the table.
yeah, it's worth remembering that Lothlórien, because of the army list, the Elven Cloak will potentially give you a reroll 1 to shooting as well,
Yeah.
which if you're really indexing there.
And they all get resistant to magic on top of that. So
Yeah,
that really
agree.
annoying, compel on the banner, just 1 die 6 that.
I have a story about that. So we haven't actually, that's funny. We haven't even gone over Adepticon yet, but one of the games at Adepticon, like, this was one of the worst moments of my life. So it's Maelstrom, and I'm playing Army of the Dead. So I was like, okay, great. He had his what's it got the Herald of the Dead just right there, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll compel a dude into me, barge off of him right into the Herald. So I go for the compel roll. Like I was like, I'm throwing 3 dice because I know I want to get high because he has the resistance to magic within 3 inches. And I rolled the 6. I'm like, okay, great. There's no way he's rolling the 6 on the 1 dice. I'm gonna kill his Herald of the Dead. Then it's just the King of the Dead and like 8 guys versus most of my army. He rolled the 6, and then the next turn the King of the Dead went right into him and wiped out the Witch King in 2 turns. And so I was just like, well, that wasn't how that was supposed to go. Uh, and so yes, resistant to magic is very, very effective. I found that out the hard way. I think the one thing, and just to add to the point of having the options between the armored and the wood elves, the wood elves are great. Like even as Eli pointed out, the reroll ones. If you're at 600 points, you're normally going to have between 11 to 12 shots. If you find a board with some hedges on it and you're shooting from behind those, you're probably getting 1 or 2 rerolls per hits per turn. Like against a D5 army, that's massive. Like that is nothing to slack off about. Or even a guy sitting on an objective with a bow, like you'll roll the 1 pretty reliably if you know how to roll dice bad. It's just like that's pretty useful. And I think the biggest thing is it provides flexibility. Like even just taking the armored list and taking 1 or 2 of those guys with the cloaks just to go find objectives and then get cover so that your enemy can't snipe you out on an objective is pretty dang cool. So I do like the flexibility that having the different lists, the different troop options bring.
I almost always run my first banner with a Lothlórien warrior because I like the Elven Cloak. You know, it means
Yeah.
you, if I can get any cover for them, you can't target them with Compel or a magic. And then I also like to have another one with a bow just for that objective sitting or, you know, taking that cheeky one, your honesty bow if you are just taking
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, you can sort of mix and match with these. What I wouldn't really do is go 50-50 between these two. I think if you're going to take Wood Elves and maybe throw in a few Galadrim. If you're going to take Galadrim, sprinkle in a few. But I think if you go like between 50 and 50, it really kind of just opens a weakness and they can target the D3 or it really kind of takes away some of the advantages you can get from taking them. But yeah, to mix and match them on a couple here and a couple there are pretty big. And I think a little bit, I mean, some armies kept it, but I think the still ability to have shield and spear as the same option is something pretty good that they retained this edition.
I do think there's play for having like a third, like just like a third of your, like taking all of your archers as Lothlórien warriors
I
and
think
just kind
so.
of having
Yeah.
them on the sides. I've found a lot of use in that. And every once in a while, it can be really fun to have your spear line be Lothlórien warriors. If you're going really, like if you're really trying to squeeze that couple extra points, you can downgrade a spear and shield guy to a Lothlórien warrior with the spear. So
And actually,
sometimes you need that extra points.
more on that, I actually think that the changes to Elven Cloaks really helped this army because you can do that. Because if your spear line is like that, not only is your opponent going to need to take in the ways to shoot them, but like it kind of is a trap because if they're going, oh, you're D3, I can kill the spears better, and they try to shoot them, they still suffer the -1 to hit, even without cover. And it's
Yeah.
just like the consistency of taking elves that have either sat still, hitting on 4s versus 3s is crazy. Even more so if they half moved in now or hitting on 5s, right? Like that's very good. Just to be able to go, if you try to get these because they're easier targets with bow fire, it's just not going to be easy for you. And I think that's just a very cool thing that they have.
I will say though, it is a little bit of a kind of a skill trap because yes, you can if you do target the back spear line, you get that -1 to hit. But if you just target someone behind those Lothlórien warriors, which you'll
Yeah.
typically
Yeah.
have like one of your heroes, then, or even if you're firing at a weird angle to like fire at one of your Galadrim court, then they can still hit them
Yeah,
on a normal value
right.
on that in the way. So
Wait.
Yeah.
yes and no.
Yeah,
That'll
it
be
really
interesting.
depends the situation. I think we give Eli the Sentinel
Sentinel.
because
Yeah.
Okay.
he's got
This is the
experience
fun
with
one.
that.
Sentinels are a lot of fun. They have very similar to the uh, Lothlórien warrior stat line: fight 5, shoot 3, strength 3, D3, 2 attacks, 1 wound, 5 up courage and intelligence, and then no heroic stats. They've got the elven hand weapon. They've got an elf bow, an elven cloak, but their big thing is their enchanting song. Um, they've got the hymn of Elbereth, which during their activation they can sing it basically at any time. They can choose a model within 12, and until the end phase of the turn, that model will pass any courage checks they're required to take. There's the Lay of Gondolin, which changed a little bit this edition. Until the end phase of the turn, this model and all friendly models within 3 of them in the Terror special rule, which is awesome. It used to
Uh-huh.
be just them or just one model, but
I think
now
it
you can
was.
create these terror bubbles.
Yeah, I think it was
Yep.
just them. But yeah, you
Yep.
string these together and terrifying elves with, either throwing weapons or bows behind them. Ooh, it gets dangerous.
And the last one is Eldamar Madrigal. It's choose an enemy model within 12 that's not engaged in combat, and they must take an intelligence check. If that fails, you may immediately move that model as if it was that model's activation. However, the only thing they can do is move. You cannot enter an enemy's control zone, dismount, lie down, or be forced to make a climb, jump, leap, swim test, and cannot move in a way that would cause it direct harm. You also stop this model from activating later in the turn. These guys are awesome. I will say a tricky thing about Eldamar Madrigal: you can't move into an enemy's control zone. So you can make someone charge with this if they're charging a model that doesn't have a control zone.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
yeah, it's not quite compel, but you can. It takes one more step of setting up. So, or you can put one of your models prone and then have them charge into your prone model because you don't have a control
Ooh,
zone, and then put other stuff into it. But then you're losing an
yeah,
attack. So
yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, these guys are so good. This game is really played on a movement level, and the ability to just manipulate your opponent's move is so powerful. And the thing too that they retain this edition, whereas Spectres didn't, is you can just pick a model and move it anywhere. You can grab the banner and
yeah.
move it 6 inches backwards. One thing that's really cool about these guys is sometimes targeting heroes doesn't seem like a good choice, but if the hero rolls, a 3 or a 4 and they're like, "Oh, I'm about to walk straight out into the line and get ganked by a bunch of elves." It is actually really powerful, and the terror song they have in there as well. The only thing that I really wish they had is instead of 2 attacks, they would have 2 wounds. Would be incredible. Because they have 2 attacks, but you don't really want them in combat because then if you don't win priority or win a move off, they're not going to get their song off. And the amount of times I've like had one of them just run in a one dude charge him and just kill them, you're like, oh, it's so annoying. But they are fantastic.
They are a
I,
nice thing to combo with. I try to keep them near Celeborn because then they get the plus
Hmm.
1 to wound, and you can toss them in, and you can actually be a source of like enchanting blades if you want. It's
Yeah.
the best option that you have that gets his plus 1. They just don't have a hand and a half weapon, which sucks.
yeah, I think this is what takes the Lothlórien list from a decent Elven list to a phenomenal Elven list. Because when you look at Lothlórien, and this is one thing that I'm gonna have a lot to talk about because I don't play Lothlórien almost at all. I think I've played it once. I've played very similar lists, Halls of Strandal and all that, but I've played against it a lot. The one easy way to beat Lothlórien is to win the scenario, not the fights and the killing war. And Wood Elf Sentinels are what help Lothlórien be able to compete and win in the scenarios. When you're able to run 6 inches, have a 12-inch threat range, make somebody take an intelligence check. If they fail, they run 6 inches. All of a sudden, that can be a 3-point swing on domination, right? You can do so much things with what the Sentinels have. You can create an amazing defensive position by if you want to move forward but really don't want to take much damage by their counter charge, run forward, throw the Sentinel forward, throw up the terror bubble. All of a sudden, it's going to be harder for them to get numbers to bear on your troops. I think having 1 to 2 Sentinels is like one of the best things you can have in a Lothlórien list because it really does elevate the play in scenarios. And it's like on paper, Lothlórien to me is one of the strongest lists in the game because it can kill so efficiently. The one issue it has is just moving around and winning the scenarios. This is that answer. Like this and the Merc and the Knights to me are the two most essential units to the list, which we will get much more into the tactic side. Those are the two things that I am targeting first every single time because those are
Yeah.
the linchpins on winning scenarios for Lothlórien.
Yeah, I will say because this ability centers around intelligence and you've got terror, Lothlórien is just really, really good into evil armies
Yeah,
and not
Hmm.
quite as good against good armies. Because then your big
yeah,
tricks, which is your terror or your intelligence checks, are just not going off nearly as
correct.
much. And so it makes him kind of an evil bully. But then against good, they really struggle.
Which is funny because honestly, I think that's much better than like Angmar because Angmar was so funny because it would like thrive in like these Civil War matchups where they were fighting evil, and then against good, like they
Yeah,
were still very good, but it was just like okay, they're fine. But then against evil, it was just like the bully of like they put you in the corner and then just pummel you until you're down and then keep pummeling you.
Yeah.
And it makes much more sense to have a good army doing that against evil lists rather than the evil on evil.
yeah.
But I do completely agree there on it really does punish the evil lists more. Um, and I think another thing to say is I think that's where Celeborn's Hour of Dismay, you pointed that out on like that can actually help. And actually into good lists, I might actually like, especially just like running forward, you don't have much to do with them. So spending the 3 and trying to get that off, I think is actually a good idea. Because that can really all of a sudden these intelligence, what are they? 7-ups become 8-ups, 6-ups become 7-ups. Is like you can get much more reliability by having oh wait, that's on courage, not intelligence. But
Yeah.
even then, just the courage is great.
Galadriel
Uh,
has Fog of Disarray.
Fog of Disarray, yeah.
So they both can provide the neg ones if you both
I
take it.
think, yeah. I think it's got some play. I think those two spells actually are really good in this list. Like Fog of Disarray is garbage on the Shadow of Rudar. Because like it helps for the specters, other than you have to get the Shadow of Rudar close to them for it to work, and then specters only pull one direction now. Whereas these guys, I think that's great having Galadriel and the Sentinels. I think they do work well together. Um, I think that's your best bet against a good list in order to get those off a bit more consistently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's tough because you've got Galadriel that you or now want to have within that 6 inch bubble.
Yeah,
But with the Terror and Celeborn, it's a lot easier because Celeborn's already going to be within 3 inches of the battle line
correct.
anyway.
Yeah,
So
yep,
he's already projecting his -1 over the front line for the enemy.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think one thing to note too is the passing courage song doesn't look that great, but I found it really important in either it's like near the end of the game and you're like, I really need to charge this terrifying model. I cannot afford to lose
yeah.
this. Or I got a model on this objective. Elves, it's the worst thing in the world when you have an elf that fails a courage test and you're like, I cannot lose this pass. And then it just adds a reliability that is really important to dealing with the end game, especially.
Yeah, I'd definitely say that's the least used, but it's really nice to
Yeah.
have in your back pocket when you do need it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're fighting those lists like what Michael played last night of the Gundabad, where you get Bolg with Harbinger of Evil, then the -2 on the horn that one turn. Like there are places where it does. It's just like I have this tool, and this is very, very good.
Yeah.
So I think again, it's a tool, and I think that's what Lothlórien has. It has the tools to where it's flexible, and I think that's what's really good about it.
Trey, you want to go ahead and take the knight now?
Ooh, the knight. I like these. They're not quite like my boys, the Mirkwood Knights, which I have had great success with. But Galadrim Knights do have something that Mirkwood Knights do not. They have access to bows. But they are base movement 6, but they have the horse obviously. So they're movement 10, all intents and purposes. They're fight 5, strength or shoot value 3 plus, strength 3, defense 5 base, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage and intelligence 5 plus. They've got heavy armor, hand and a half weapon, and the Galadrim Steed, which is an armored horse that also has woodland creature. So that's last edition's equivalent of Fleetfoot. Now it's pretty much the same as long as the mount has it. And then they can take a banner, which actually is also a pretty cool option. Michael has done some pretty cool things with knights with banners. Um, Elven bows, shields, and then they themselves also have woodland creature. And honestly, just looking at that, armored horses are pretty good. Pretty good. Unfortunately, this edition, Legolas's and Elven shooting is pretty everywhere, but still having that D5 mount is really nice.
I think you touched in on the the banner passing off is amazing. I think everything except a sentinel in the warrior list can take a banner. So your
Yeah.
banners are super resilient in being passed off to almost anyone near you.
Yeah. I think one thing that I really like, I'm sad that the Knights, and what I love to do last edition is you can no longer do it with the Rivendell Knights. You can't take both a shield and a bow. Even though they have Expert Rider, that's not an option anymore. So I feel like the vast majority of times you want to take that shield just because even though if you have a bow and, a cavalry model, an elven cavalry model with a bow is powerful, like Trey said, that's going to be the first thing that your opponents are going to target. So you want to make sure that that shield is on there. But what they did gain was, and they didn't have last edition, I don't think, was the hand and a half weapon, which just adds that little bit of punch on a charging cav when you can two hand and just chop down whatever's in front of you.
Which I have stories about. It was Mirkwood Cav, not these Cav, but two-handed weapons on Cav are amazing. One game that I was in a really bad position. I had to spend 5 points of my at Nova to get my guys in the position I wanted in Maelstrom. Then he pops on a captain right behind me, so I was in like a double contention now. So I was kind of cooked. I was able to throw two cav into his captain by using terrain to pretty much finagle the control zone so I could get both into him without charging anybody else. I was just like, if I don't kill you this turn, I lose. So I was like, I'm gonna two hand on just one because I don't want to just straight up lose some cav. I won the fight on the Elven Blade and two-handed weapons, 4 dice. I mean, yeah, they needed fives, but like those needing fives and 4 more needing sixes, it was just like, okay, 2 5s and a 6, you're gone. Two-handed weapons on Cav are amazing. Like it's they can just take out a captain.
Yeah,
Like Mordor Orc captains, beware. Like your fight for your D5, D6, you're just dead against
Yeah,
this guy.
it's what one thing you can do with Lothlórien is, especially if you're fighting like a really killy hero, they'll often charge your lines and then start combating through. And then that's when you have like Celeborn running with a strike and then a knight. And now
Yeah.
you're two handing with a +1 to wound, and then Celeborn's got the pike supporting him, and
Yep.
then boom, you can flash kill or take down a Boromir.
yeah. I think any army that, because a lot of armies lost the ability to like just plug in a few cav into their list. If you can take two or three cav, just always try and take it. Like, if you compare even like a Galadrim Knight to a Rivendell Knight, you're like, they're not as great, but again, these cav are so important just for doing cavalry things, whether that's grabbing objectives, whether that's you have a hero on the charge and you're like, I don't really want them to kill, so you throw a knight in and now they don't get their charge bonus. All of these different things and they fill such an important role. So make sure to always grab a few of those before you leave.
Yeah,
I
I
will,
would
yeah,
suggest at least two.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, even with a shield, the, my knights they're just arrow magnets. You have one
Yeah.
person shoot at them, it goes through and in the way, it kills the knight. And you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It is quite annoying. I'll go on to, I believe, the last special unit, and this one is also a very fun one that makes them very unique, and it is the Guard of the Galadrim Court. So they start at 12 points, which is pretty elite, but it starts off at fight 6, so already you know it's going to be great. They have shoot value 3, which doesn't matter. Strength 3, defense 5, 1 attack, 1 wounds. Courage 4 up, again, intelligence 5 up. They have heavy armor and an elven pike. So they have wooden creature, and then their special rule is Kara Galadra fighting style, which means they can shield while using their pikes. Um, which is even better. So not only can you pike up with these guys, you can also shield with them, and importantly, different than last edition, this is an elven pike, so it gains the elven blade roll off. But Fight 6 is fantastic. I don't think it's unfortunately what it used to be because I feel like every hero in the game now that you walk into has some sort of Fight 7. But this is you bring a couple of these and you hit another, fight 5 army or another elf army, and yeah, that's pretty good right there. Despite the fact that you can just put 2 pikes behind a hero or an infantry model that 2 hands and just put out tons of damage. So they're really good and really reliable. And also the courage 4 up is pretty sneaky. So
Shielding. I don't know
Yeah.
why they gave them that, and the shielding just makes them such a versatile unit, and I hate it. I've played against these guys so much. They annoy me so much. And then also this edition, they're elven made pikes, which let's be real, they should have always been. But when you're shielding fight 6 with an elven weapon, that's ridiculously annoying. I have had so many games against you, Michael, with these guys. Uh, Back when Men of the West was bad, I hated your bluff because of these guys because they're annoying. But
And Courage 4, it's pretty nice if there's something that you're worried about.
yeah.
it's reliable because even if you hit the example that I gave, like the super niche example of Bolg with Harbinger plus the -2 from the Gorgoroth Horn, there's still Courage 7 plus with -3 Courage. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's still like over a 50% chance of success when they're at a -3. Like that's crazy.
I think
Um,
also something that's really interesting to note, because a lot of things this edition, like, even Palace Guard or anything else has the elite keyword and can only be taken in certain warbands. These guys, you can put them anywhere you want in any warband. So a little bit of a thing that they have over their other kind of elite Elven Warriors. So,
Yeah. Lothlórien doesn't have any elite keywords.
which is
no,
really
it's
weird.
interesting.
They
Yeah.
have their pseudo elites with the Lorien guards, but like they're not really elites. They're just an upgrade for Warman. I think the one thing that these guys have, and actually another thing I'll point out, resistant to magic on these guys is also super useful. This army having resistant to magic on all the troops is super annoying. Not only because they play armies the Great Eye with like 2 to 3 casters a lot, it's more of just the thing of the Sentinels, you want to take them out. The Cav, you want to take them out. These guys, you want to take them out. The banners, you want to take them out. All of them having resistant to magic is just such a good tool to have because even if they get 1 or 2 of those tools with the magic, there's normally going to be like 7 or 8 of these tools combined in your list that they're going to be going after. You're probably going to be resisting 1 or 2 of those if they're targeting you with magic. Like, and that can really slow down an enemy Witch King who's investing 2 to 3 will for like a compel on a knight, and then you successfully ward it off. It's like that's massive. So I think there's just so much tools to say when your elites all have resistant to magic. I think that's such a cool tool.
Yeah. I think it's a really good list. So that's all the profiles. So now we're gonna move kind of into our second point, which is gonna be, I mean, we've already talked a lot about it through the profiles, but kind of, all right, you have your Lothlórien army, you're on the table. How are you approaching the matchup, the scenario? What do you want and what do you not want to see as a Lothlórien player?
I give my answer to Eli because I don't play it enough to say what I like to see and what I don't.
Well, I do think, Trey, you did say something really great earlier about Lothlórien is that to play against them, you probably can't outkill them, but you can outplay the scenario. And I think that is something that's really tough as Lothlórien is I think it's almost better to take Lothlórien for a tournament where you know all the scenarios. And Veto is just it's almost a little harder for you because there's so many missions that want you to spread out and go different places. Um, Lothlórien is really good if you have made the right list for the right scenario and you're playing that scenario, and then everything just plays out perfectly for you. But once you get thrown off that, it's pretty difficult.
Yeah. And I think too, like Lothlórien handles a lot of these elite armies better because again, you can shut down one or two heroes with your casters or just your fight sticks or your heroes or your Rumil. But I think also where sometimes it might struggle is just a ton of bodies you throw at it. Like maybe it's somatic, but like in Assault on Lothlórien or something where you're getting
Yep.
two models to every one, and you're like at that point you just are hoping and throwing dice, and if you can get in the right ball and just do well. But I think yeah, if you're comparing like your 10, 11, 12 point elf and they have two 6 point orcs or something that can if they get lucky win and kill it, it starts to become a bit of a problem.
I'm
I think
gonna do kind of
anything. Yeah. Yeah.
a go for it, Eli. Go for it. I can
Well,
wait.
I was gonna say I think this army really struggles the more heroes that you have at fight 8 or higher, or reliably get fight 8 or higher, like an Aragorn, because you don't really have anything that's guaranteed to work. Like you've got magic, but they can resist it. You can strike, but there's a chance you don't get high enough, and so there's always like it's not a guarantee. There's always that chance that that big hero resists on that important turn and stops your plan.
Yeah. I was just gonna point out the facts similar to what Michael's saying on bodies. I don't know how you would think about this, but Ugluk scouts for me when I see that at least like below 700 and below, I could see that being a massive issue. Simply because Ugluk scouts has the movement to get to objectives super fast, movement to wrap around. They've got a bunch of bodies. They also have their own killing power. So like if they're winning, they're probably going to kill an elf. And they just get so many bodies and so much heroic march drums that they can really threaten you on that. So like lists like that where you get decent movement, tons of bodies, decent strength value, like even just having a spattering of strength for a ton of like if you're playing hobbits, you're probably cooked, honestly. But actually I would love to see Lothlórien versus hobbits. I actually think that would be a really interesting list, like go against, because like Gandalf really doesn't have much to do other than knock down like a troop, because you're really not going to be throwing in your heroes for combat. And as long as you've got a decent amount of terrain, I think Lothlórien could actually do that pretty consistently. If you've got Galadriel for the blinding light, I think that would be a really fun matchup to watch. Because they also don't have enough movement to really get the wraps around on you. I think that would actually be a really interesting game to watch. And then you're just going to be mowing them down like a lawnmower in grass. Um, but I think anything that can do that, I think you pointed out more than anything is I think the biggest issue isn't really the list you're playing against, it's more the scenario you're playing in. Obviously, the list has something to do with that, but if you're playing something like Escort the Wounded or Domination, where it forces you to spread out, it can get really tough. At least something like Domination, you can play around with where the objectives are and then spread out late. But anything where there's any resemblance of splitting up really does not help this army. Um, I'll cite a game that wasn't against Lothlórien, but is against a list in a similar build to Lothlórien, and it's 600 points, and it was Mirkwood. I played this Thursday, and the thing that really sold it for me because I was playing my Great Eye with Shelob, the Witch King, and a Taskmaster, and one flank I had like 10 orcs and he had like 8 elves, and one turn he had to move forward, but he didn't have enough movement to charge, And so he just set up in a semi-defensible position, but I was able to get some just numbers on like half of those elves. So I was just like, let's pop them around the side angle, get a few of these spears or the glaives, and just being able to have a couple 2, 3-on-1s really was detrimental. So as a Lothlórien player, you really want to be looking for terrain and defensible positions for setting up your troops. I think to me, I mean, Eli, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When I look at it, how you're controlling where you are placing your models is very important. Because you need to keep in mind, I need to play defensive so I don't get overrun swarmed, but I also need to be in a position to where I can get to objectives and win the scenario itself. I think that's the danger with Lothlórien is either going, I'm going to stay defensive, shoot them to pieces, they come to me, then I kill them, and then, oh, I killed them, so I should win, right? And then you don't, right? And then the other one is going too much into, oh, I need to play on the objectives and abandoning those terrain pieces that are very crucial. So I think there's that balance of you need to find the right pieces, the right places to be fighting. And sometimes you will have to make some sacrifices. And I think I will say this, I think this is one of the highest playing cap ceilings for an elite list simply because all of the tools are highly advanced. It's nothing like, oh, just run forward and kill stuff. Like I could see a totally mid player doing actually decently well with the host of the Dragon Emperor. And the reason is it still is you're getting 4 dice, you're getting +1 to wound on the front, you're getting fight 5. Like you can just march that army forward and kill stuff. This list is nowhere near. There's so much things that you have to synergize to get things out. You need to have the right board placement. You're not extremely fast. You don't have a solid D6 across your entire army. There's so much more that's going on that makes it such a harder list to manage, especially given the unknowns of what your opponent is playing and scenarios. So to me, that's my worries when I'm looking at it is more of scenarios more than anything.
Yeah, I think especially in a tournament setting, like if you play at home or in like your local game store, if you have all the time in the world, I think Lothlórien is all of a sudden maybe the best game in the arm. They're the best army in the game. But once you're on a time clock and you have to make sure to be on the objective, even if you haven't softened up the enemy enough or pulled their pieces apart enough, then that's where you can really struggle.
And I will say that
Yeah.
I play a lot of lists that are like the exact opposite of I like lists that play to time more than to like conclusion. So I play a lot of Great Eye. And a lot of those lists are, oh, I can get a banner kill early. Oh, I can get a little hero kill early. Oh, I'm faster than you. I'll get onto objectives earlier. But really the issue with those lists are if you do play if you just get too many turns in, if you break, all of a sudden you're in a world of trouble. And so Lothlórien has the opposite issue of you want that time because once you break your opponent, even if you break, you're in a better position than they are statistically, just mathematically. You have a better long game than they do. You get a will point every turn on your heroes. Your heroes don't rely on their might to do stuff. There's so much that they have in terms of late gameplay. So I think that's the other thing that you need to watch out for, especially if you're trying Lothlórien, is don't get discouraged when early on in a game it looks like your opponent is just wiping the floor. Because the issue for them is if they're using fight 6 heroes that are mounted and they run into you, call a heroic strike, kill 2 guys, do the same thing, it can be very sad to look at. Like you're just like, I just lost 4 Galadrim guards. The issue for them is they're going to run out of might eventually, and then guess what you have? 2 to 3 more Galadrim guards that can just pin them the rest of the game. And as soon as they lose, they're taking wounds. So I think the one thing is it's it's like comparing my style of lists to like a basketball game versus a golf game. Lothlórien is much more of a mental battle rather than just like that physical, super fast-paced game. So it's a completely different build. So if you can't translate the style of play of Lothlórien to these other lists. It will not play like these other lists. And I mean, that goes for most armies in the game, but I would say more so for Lothlórien because it is much more of a mental game more than anything, which again compares to Angmar a lot.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
be very frustrating for your opponent, but it can also be very frustrating for yourself where you're like, oh man, I've played 3D chess. I've found the exact perfect situation. And then your hero fails to strike up, or you don't kill the
Yeah.
character in one turn. And then you're like, oh, everything is gone. This is
Yeah.
terrible.
Uh, yeah, I think something to note is kind of what you said, Trey. Lothlórien works best as a proactive list instead of a reactive list. Like, you think, with the magic and other stuff, you have the ability to, your opponent does something, all right, I can cancel this out this way. But between your might usage, your sentinels, even down to the spells and stuff you have, you can be very proactive and get yourself in very advantageous positions where you can get an early kill here or snag an objective here or just find yourself in a very winning position. But I think why it takes a very skilled player to do well with it is you have to line up all of these things well. You can't just sit back and roll dice because there's so many different interactions and special rules because you can between priority and the movement phase and the shooting phase and the fighting phase, like every single thing that you could have in an army, Lothlórien has access to. You just got to make sure it kind of all lines up together. And sometimes, yeah, dice can really be a problem for this list. Both ways. If you're rolling hot, things can go badly. You can have like trapped and surrounded, then you just, roll sixes and you get plus one to wound, takes you where you want to go. And vice versa, if you're in a really good position, but you don't get a strike up, or, oh no, this person failed their courage test and ran away. Like, it can turn very quickly in either direction, I feel like.
I mean, honestly, I think we hit most of the points for that. I think the one thing that it comes down to a lot, and again, I pointed this out earlier, is how you're using the specialized units is massive. Um, Keeping a knight, even just one knight alive for the late game is so good for Lothlórien, which is why, like we said, I would always take at least two, if not three, because chances are at least one of them, if not two, will get sniped out pretty consistently, whether from bowfire or they're going to target them with getting their heroes or their own cav into the right positions to pin them. Um, a sentinel, again, late game is where they're really going to put in the work. Early on, they can just be super annoying for your opponent. They have to think more, especially if you have like the double compel and a cav. The double compel being like the compel plus the sentinel, so you can move things out of the way, then pull out a banner, and then throw a cav on. So you've got things you always need to be watching. Like playing against Lothlórien can be some of the most frustrating games ever. And also, like games I've played against your Lothlórien, Michael, I have seen you play some of the craziest games ever. Like seeing this was last edition, but you had Wood Elves versus Andrew, and he had Helm Hammerhand and Rohan.
That was
And
funny.
he absolutely wiped the floor when it came to killing because you just had that first turn where Helm got in and got like 4 kills. His couple Royal Guard got a few kills, and it was just you were in a bad spot early and you just use your fight five to hold the enemy up in the right places, and you use Haldir right, and you ended up getting them like it was like a 9 to 3 in breakthrough or something, and you had like 5 models left at the end of the game, and you got a major victory. I mean, obviously it was in a for fun matchup,
Yeah.
but like he absolutely demolished you, and you still destroyed him on victory points. And I think that's one thing that Lothlórien can do. They play the long game both ways. Like they can win with very few models on the table. They can also win because your enemy has very little models on the table. So I think there's a lot to say on its endurance on fight five is just very good, especially if you've got Wood Elf spears, the Galadrim with the pikes, a few guys with shields, being able to shield, having a few banners around. They've got the endurance factor that a lot of other lists don't. They've got courage. They've got a lot of models that can shield. I think Lothlórien is a great list, mainly based on what I've seen other people do with it. I've never pulled it out because I never have bought a Lothlórien army, so I've proxied it a few times with like my Mirkwood. But like all things considering, playing against that list is scary, especially for me who plays a lot of Fight 6 heroes, because most of the Fight 7 heroes, I mean, I used to play Aragorn a lot last edition, this edition. I've played him in Grey Company. That's about it. But it really is interesting to see when I play against it, I'm frightened to death because I play a lot of Witch King on Angmar, like Witch King on Felbeast. And it's just like if I commit, I'm going to die unless I call a heroic strike into warriors. Do I want to go in and call a heroic strike against warriors? Not really. So it really can be a really annoying list to play against, not even considering the magic, the sentinels, the cab. Like
Yeah.
there's so much depth, which I think that's one thing. Rivendell is great. Rivendell, it's got the wraths, it can do damage. Mirkwood's great. It's got the glaives, which can be absolutely annoying. Their cav can get up to fight 6. You've got Thranduil can be a beast. He can also just support and be good. But none of them have the tactical depth that Lothlórien has. And I think
Mhm.
that's the big thing for me when I look at Lothlórien is it's just it can handle more than these other lists can.
Yeah, I totally think so. I think one thing you touched on a little bit is Lothlórien does play a very good might game. And I think between, throwing spells and if you have the mirror winning priority a lot, and a lot of times too, if you find yourself in a good position as Lothlórien, you don't need to call that many moves. Um, versus your opponent might want to a bit more. And the thing about the might is you can use it for so many different things. You can use it for strikes, you can use it for defense, for channeling, for even combats and all these different stuff. But I think it can, and how you handle the might does really matter. Because I think one thing that Lothlorien doesn't like to see is, 4 or 5 heroes go into your front line, all call combats or strikes, and there goes like 8 elves. Like a burnout strategy can work against Lothlorien, but Lothlorien will play the long, slow grind game, and eventually they're going to be able to move first. They're going to have the might to do its proactive. So I think using the might both aggressively, but also keeping enough in store for the late game is important when playing this list.
I think that's
Just
where
one,
Haldir can really come in and shine
yeah.
because he has that 3 might, so you can really play for that longer game and be a little bit more aggressive with his might for move calls.
I think that as well as the mirror is another good thing. Just the mirror, it forces your opponent's hand. Because Michael did point out, unlike Angmar, this list is actually very good at being proactive. It's very good on moving in, setting up how it wants. But it's also good at being a reactive force. Like it can do both very well. I would say it's slightly better at being proactive, but the mirror forces your opponent's hand. Like it forces them to go, I need to call a heroic move here to set up how I want. And you're like, I really don't care because I've got all the space behind to move around my pikes, readjust, and I've got the sentinels and stuff. And so I think the mirror as well as Haldir are both good things for that. I will say the only times I've ever gotten a burnout strategy to work against Lothlórien is when I've had Aragorn to eternally have the might. Otherwise, it just does not work. And even against those games, I've still lost to Michael with my Old Men of the West with Aragorn before, and even with that. But every time I've played it, which I think was 3 or 4 times, Michael, I burned out every single time and I killed a bunch. But then one of those times you were able to just slow me down and then I lost. And then the other times I was able to capitalize off it, get to the fight 6 guys early enough with the burnout after doing the for Frodo, getting the fight 7 turn to get into some of them and kill them. And that is another thing. That list kind of cheats because even last edition it still had the access to fight 7. Um, but even this edition, like there's fight 7 heroes, but they're not that consistent. Like at tournaments, you'll see the Boromirs and Aragorns everywhere, but like even then, it's normally less than a quarter of the lists will have all these fight 7 heroes, which is like a lot of people are like, oh, Galadrim, they're not that good. Like the fight 6 isn't as good as it used to, and they're right, it isn't as good, but it's still very good. Because even those lists, Legolas is just scared to death to go into a battle line with these guys because 50% chance he's just dead. Um,
Yeah.
I
there,
will say
there's
though, Legolas does have his stupid ability now where he can just shoot out the pikes behind
yeah,
you. So unless you
That's
can get it,
that's so annoying.
completely forgot
uh,
about that.
I do think men of the one thing that's really gonna hurt Lothlórien, especially if you're trying to go for the podium, is Men of the West is really not a good matchup.
yeah.
Especially once you're getting like to the high points that Lothlórien wants to play. They're gonna have Aragorn, they're gonna have Gwaihir, they're gonna have Leggy, and they move faster than you. They shoot a little better with you. They can pop out your guard with with leggy, and then Guahirs just could get anywhere.
Yeah. One more thing to note, and I think we might go into this a little bit more list, but the armored version of Galadrim versus a complete Wood Elf army. Because I've played a Wood Elf army and it operates differently in that you're gonna have a lot of bows, you can have a lot of throwing weapons, and you just want to be moving like consistently. So you're just running around, you're throwing your writhing vines, you're winning priority, you're getting shots in, and you're just kind of moving around and kiting. And then it is kind of funny because then once the lines hit, like your elves die fast. Like D3 does die pretty quickly, but I think it is a very different style of play. I think sometimes it might fit a bit more towards the objective play where you're able to, just consistently move and you'll call marches and you'll throw more of this movement shenanigans, so you're able to play to some of those more. But then when it comes to, killing scenarios or just, battle line to battle line, sometimes your list can melt apart. So I think that's one build that I've experimented with that I've enjoyed a lot more as well. And I think it's almost slightly like two different types of armies, whether it's full armored versus wooded.
Completely, right? Because you don't normally run casters, but maybe a Lothlórien Stormcaller, but you're probably not running Celeborn or Galadriel with full pajama elves, or are
Yeah.
you?
It
I
depends on the
well,
build.
we'll see on the
Yeah.
list. I do have one list that I'll bring up that is a bunch of wood elves. So,
I have one as well. I have a lot of experience with all dwarf rangers, so doing a lot of the rangers with the throwing weapons, the rangers with the longbows, and then the two-handed axes. Although normally I'll throw in some shieldmen too. And I will say the one thing that I have an issue with the Lothlórien Wood Elves one is the one thing that we just talked about Lothlórien not having some issues when playing to timed matches
mhm.
makes it just exponentially harder when you're playing a kiting Lothlórien list because you have the normal things with Lothlórien plus extra time for kiting. So in a just one-on-one like have fun match where you have like 3 hours for a 600 700 point game, go for it. If you're a good player with that, you will likely win just about every matchup because if you are good at kiting, it is so hard to beat you. Like
You'll have fun.
kiting
Your opponent won't.
kiting lists genuinely are so oppressive in the hands of a great player. The issue for them is time. Like time can just kill you. And so that's just the thing you need to watch out with is if you're going to be doing that, you want to have in your mind, I've got a game plan, let's execute it quick. So just move quick, do your dice rolls quick. Like you just got to keep up a good tempo. Which is true for several lists in the game. Like the Shire, if you're not playing quick, you're not going to win anything, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, y'all ready to go into some army lists?
Yeah, let's
Sure.
do it.
Eli, you wanna start us off if you're ready?
Sure. I built a. We've got a tournament coming up that's going to be an escalation tournament. So it's going to be
Ooh,
Okay.
nice.
450 for the first 3 games, and then 750 for the last 2 games.
Okay.
And so I built a 450 list, which it's 23 models, 6 bows. It's got Galadriel with a Lothlórien banner, 6 Galadrim warriors with bows, 2 guard of the Galadrim court, and then 5 Galadrim warriors with spear. It's got a Galadrigan captain, then 3 warriors with shields, 3 warriors with spears and shields, and then a knight with a shield. So 23 models, 6 bows, no sentinels, but 2 guard of the Galadrim court, and 1 knight for kind of tech. So
And all those warriors with spears also have shields, right? Is spear and shield enough?
no, there's 5 of them that only have spears to save
Okay.
points. And I'm contemplating dropping my armored captain to an unarmored captain and then giving those guys shields. Because then I also gain an extra bow with a captain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think there is something to say. Even that you still have a good amount of D6, which for Lothlórien you normally have a lot more D5 just with you've got the pikes, you'll normally have a few of the wood elves sprinkled in. So I will say that's a healthy amount of D6. Like at 450, 23 elves without that much D6. They've got the magic from Galadriel. You've got the knight. The knight is the crucial thing for me. You've got the knight, you've got the banner, a few fight six, and lots of defense six. I think that and then the bows for the front line in Galadriel's warband, that's peak because you got the two-handed weapons that you can just sit there and just chop things to butter with. The banner, some fight six. Like to me, you've got a complete list. Like at 450, how many fight seven heroes are there going to be? Who's willing to invest their 200 points into an Aragorn or a Boromir? Like at 450, you should be set there. And I really like how that is shaping up at 450, especially for like an escalation tournament. I think that'll be
Yeah.
really cool. Because I think the escalation tournament, even when you get to the 750 for the day two or whatever, because there's the 450 round one, you're not going to have much of those like massive 200, 250 point heroes to deal with because of the way the escalation is set up. So I actually think that's a great tournament to run Lothlórien at because you'll face much more of those fight six heroes. So I really like that list.
Yeah, I think sometimes I'd play around with Celeborn as the leader at that points level, but this tournament encourages having the same leader for both days.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I want Galadriel for 750. So,
Yep.
I think the model count is actually like really high for 450. Getting in the high 20s with elves and that is super powerful. I think even if someone like Trey said decides to bring someone above fight 7, Galadriel can pretty reliably shut stuff down. I think the shooting is also very important because at low points, you'll have the blinding light, you'll have the shooting, and 3 or 4 more models dead really matters when you're talking about these low point matches. And the march there covers the problem of mobility if you play these different types of scenarios. So I think like this is one of the better versions of Lothlórien at low points as well. Um, I think it just the only problem is you might run into some problems if you run into like a front to back line. It might not have necessarily the killing power you want, but again, I think at lower points that's probably not something you need to prioritize.
yeah, I think I'll struggle into dwarves or anything with D7, D8 everywhere for some reason. So,
Yeah, I could see some Minas Tirith lists with like Faramir or something also being annoying where they've got the knights that can get up to fight five and then a
uh,
solid D6 to 7 front line. I could see that being annoying. Um, but
I
if
I
there's
do
not
like
much Minas Tirith.
the Galadrim captain, just again because you kind of want every model to be in combat. So I think the D6 will matter a bit more, even though it's like 5 more points and you don't get the bow. But I think he'll be pretty reliable in combat to get the one killer turn that you'll need. So I really like that list.
And to
so
put
maybe I
more on
drop,
that,
maybe I downgrade some other guys to give armored to unarmored to get a bow on the
Yeah,
captain.
two might
I
with a bow
think
and sharpshooter could be pretty deadly.
yeah, because honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even think you need much spear and shield guys because if your opponent is going to be targeting the defense five, they're going to be targeting the archers, not the spears. So
Yeah.
now that I think about it, now that you've got the bows on the front line, you could finagle that around as you want. But I really like that list. I think at 450, that's got the tools. I think I agree with Michael. The armored captain does sound much sweeter because having that fight six with the elven hand and a half blade at 450 is just super solid because he's going to be matching up to those like 100 point heroes that are that same tier, but you're paying less points for them and taking more models. So I would agree the D6 there is really nice.
Yeah.
Michael, you want to go next?
All right, this one is fun. So I've built a lot of Lothlórien lists over the years. I really liked them last edition with alliances, but sadly you can't do that anymore. But you know what? I was like, you know what, Lothlórien? I haven't seen Lothlórien do. I haven't seen them do a hero hammer list. So I wrote a hero hammer Lothlórien list. So it starts out with Celeborn, who is my leader, and he has 3 Galadrim warriors with shield, 3 with shield and spear, 1 guard of the Galadrim court, and 1 knight with shield. In Warband 2, we have Rumil, 2 Galadrim warriors with shield, 3 with shield and spear, 1 Galadrim warrior with banner. Orifrim, 2 with shield, 2 with shield and spear, and 1 guard of the Galadrim Court. Then I have Halzir with heavy armor and elf bow. He has 1 sentinel and 3 Lothlórien warriors, so the Wood Elves with elf bow. And then a Galadrim captain, the heavily armored one with elf bow, and he has 1 sentinel and 3 elf warriors with bow. So in total, we are looking at I have it pulled up here. I think at 800 points, which is this list, you have 32 models, which is a bit lower, but you have 8 shots, 12 points of might, 7 will, and 8 fate. And the idea is this is about the most list that you literally just get in a giant ball and you just run through heroes. Um, and I don't really know if it's that effective, but you know what? I hadn't seen it run, so I was like, let's throw the 3 brothers, a captain, and Celeborn in a list. So yeah,
How many points was it again?
800. So you
It's
get
like
5 heroes at 800. I have only 1 knight, but I have 2 sentinels and I think only 2 guards. But I have a lot of heroes, so that was kind of my thinking
One
there.
banner or two?
Just 1 banner. I thought about this is where it was like I kind of wanted like the sentinels behind and they just throw terror, which would be really useful with the heroes. But I also thought about dropping a sentinel for 2 banners just to really give that reroll for all the heroes.
I think my only gripe is that stupid Orphan. I would probably drop Orphan to take the Lothlórien Stormcaller and then maybe another knight, so
Ooh.
that you get the 2 knights and then you have a second caster to complement Celeborn.
Yeah, I like that idea.
honestly, I would just kind of go more. I would drop Orphan for just more guards at the Galadrim Court and just hike up behind your heroes.
No, this is a hero heavy army. We need that
Th-
fifth hero.
You need the hero. You need the yeah. Poor orphan is just copying it this episode.
I'm not against. You know what? I think for the rest of the episode, I think I just have to like glaze Orphan and just say he's the greatest thing ever.
All right. I got a lot of editing ahead of me then. Uh, yeah, no, I don't know if it's gonna work. I'm actually kind of curious to put it on a table for like, go down to a game store one weekend and play a couple games and see if
I'll
like
play you. I'll play you.
this is really bad or if maybe I found something that's not ever really been run before.
I'll
Come up
bring
to
like
Washington.
yeah.
All right, Trey, what's you got?
Okay. I'm gonna start off with the lowest points list that I wrote, which is right here. And so this one is a Wood Elf list. So this one's 650. And it's Wood Elf heavy. And to me, when I look at Lothlórien, this is what I want to play. So I might steal some of your models sometime soon, Michael. So our general is Galadriel, Lady of Lothlórien. Uh, and after talking earlier, I did add the mirror. So I switched out 1 sentinel for the mirror, which I will still say the style of list, I'm not entirely convinced because having 2 sentinels I do think is very good, but I do think priority with the Wood Elves is more important than having that extra sentinel. So then in her warband, she has 2 Galadrim Knights with elven bows. So those are my 2 cav, and they do have the bows. So we're open to talking about that, but I do like them in the Wood Elf build with bows. Then we have 5 Lothlórien warriors with the elven bow, 3 Lothlórien warriors with the Wood Elf spear, 4 Lothlórien warriors with the throwing weapons, and then 3 guards of the Galadrim courts. And then in Warband 2, we have Celeborn, 1 Wood Elf sentinel, 1 Lothlórien warrior with banner, 2 Lothlórien warriors with elf bow, 5 Lothlórien warriors with elven throwing weapons, 2 Lothlórien warriors with the Wood Elf spear, and then 3 more Galadrim court guards. So right off the bat, the one thing that you're missing is the march, that's big. And so the one thing you're going to need to do with this list is you can't really run forward and then do like the weird running away and kiting. It's much more of a run forward, find your place where you want to fight, and get your kills with your throwing weapons as they come in, get your kills when you run into them, and use your bow fire. And you've got 10 bows and 9 throwing weapons. At 650, that's pretty solid with 33 units, a banner, 6 dudes, 2 magic casters, a sentinel, couple cav. I think it can do some things. I think because you don't have the march, it does limit you a bit in playstyle. I think it is much more of you need to run to certain places sooner than you could have with the march. And some scenarios do get statistically and like just drastically harder without it. But I do think having 2 casters, the Compel and the Sentinel, do help in some of those scenarios.
How many knights did you have in the list?
2,
Okay.
It's how many models?
33.
33.
Okay. Yeah. I think this was run a lot more last year, or last edition,
Yeah.
I should say.
Even last
Um,
year, Kylie
really
ran
high.
it to CanCon last year at like I think it was 600 points, and she won it with 600 points. This is before the Knights, before the Sentinels. So I pretty much just said, I like what she did. I'm just going to make it 650, add in Knights and Sentinels. Um,
Yeah.
which I think. Oh, and Guard to the Galadriel Court. So she didn't even have fight 6. Um, but I think it's got leg. Like I think it could do well. I don't think. I think this is another list where, like Eli very clearly pointed out, and very well pointed out, was the fact that veto is not necessarily the greatest system for Lothlórien. It's better than perfect than fully random, but in a pre-selected pool where you've got like convergence, even convergence wouldn't necessarily be great, but something where there's still movement. You get time to throw your throwing weapons, take your shots, things that aren't like lead from the front or things like, although lead from the front maybe not might not be too bad since it's 650 and you've got 2 high heroes, but like um the fortification points one, like that would be
Mm.
genuinely terrible, right? So there are a lot of scenarios where I think in a pre-selected pool where none of the scenarios necessarily are like instant lose, I think this list could do fine at. But some matchups would just you would just die without having the march, especially like that does remove tools.
I think if you're going for both the casters, that mirror is really important because then it kind of replaces your need to like really call moves.
Yeah.
But man, I feel like at this low points, I really like having only one caster and then
Yeah.
maybe 2 smaller heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the double caster is just. I feel like I need a little bit more movement. I feel like I really
Which
love that march
that is totally
and
fair.
more bodies.
I used to be a certified heroic march hater. Like I used to
I
hate it
converted
so much.
him.
And so there was the one exception of when I ran Men of the West last edition, which is a little 27 model death ball list with the twins, Aragorn, Baragond. And then I would march because I got it for free, but I was like, oh, it's not worth an actual point of might. And then this edition, I continued that through Nova. I didn't bring March to Nova. Now, to be fair, I had Gwai here, so that doesn't really count. But then last fall, I started playing Gray Company, and then I started picking up Survivors of Lake Town. And in Survivors of Lake Town, I didn't want to take Gandalf because 170 points for Gandalf on horse just is not worth it unless you're at like 750. And so I was like, I'm just going to take captains. Let's see what I can do with like 4 captains, Bard, and like 30 units. Um, and then I started realizing how good March is. And ever since it was that one recon game against your Lothlórien, ironically enough, Michael, where I called 4 marches in one game, and just
It was
seeing how I was able to finagle all of the movement and just like shift areas so quickly converted me like instantly. I was like, I dropped like half of my might on marches, and I feel so happy about that. And ever
yeah.
since then, now I'm like, I want to march in my list. So it's either a drum or a captain in like every list.
I
See what?
think
Oh yeah,
sorry. I think maybe if you still want to go double caster, I might up the knights then to 3 or 4. I know that might actually hurt your movement, but I ran a list last edition that had, I think, 3 knights, and I never had so much fun with knights in my life. But um, that technically compensates for your movement, where, if you play objectives, they have the expert rider, and if you have 3 or 4 of them, you can split off 2 and 2 and cover some ground.
Even if you have 4 of them, you can take the hit of dismounting 1 or 2 if you need to like dig something up.
These guys don't
Um,
have expert rider.
Oh, these guys don't. Okay, right, never
Yeah.
mind. Ouch.
L. Michael.
Now, if you're willing to hear the other argument, I would say drop Kelborn, drop a single knight, and use your second caster as a Stormcaller and a captain.
Ooh,
And then maybe you
that
get
would
one other body in there.
yeah, that would be fun. That would be a blast. Uh, or even if you do that, I think at that point, if you're not doing the double caster, I don't think you need 6 guards of the Galadrim Court. I think at that point you could do with 4 at 650. So if you drop down 2 guards of the Galadrim Court, then you have 24 points to work with, which I think you can do a lot, especially when you're taking the Wood Elves, which are cheaper. Um, yeah, I think it's a list that I would love to have fun with. And honestly, I actually do really like the idea of Galadriel and a Stormcaller at 650. That sounds like a blast.
Our biggest tournament has typically been 650 down in October, Clash of the Coast.
Ooh.
Come up to Vancouver, BC.
If I have the time, I will. I just don't.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest. Middle of October is just such a hard spot in the school year for it. But
Well, I'll help you with homework.
I'm down. Okay. You want to go over a second list for us, Eli?
Sure. I am. I'll go over my Adepticon list that I took at 750.
Which one? You took 3.
Oh, I took 3. Yeah, I'll choose my favorite. I will do. So it's the 3 heroes are Kelborn, Galadrim Captain, and then I'm going to go with Haldir with heavy
Okay.
armor and
Mhm.
a bow. And then it's got, let's see, it's got 2 Galadrim Knights with shields. It's got 2 Wood Elf Sentinels. It's got 8 Guard of the Galadrim Court. One Galadrim Warrior with a banner, 1 Lothlórien Warrior with a banner. And let's see, 8, 12. It's got 12 Galadrim Warriors with shield. And then 4, 5, 6, 9 with shield and spear. So, like 38 models, 21 armored elves, 8 Guard of the Galadrim Court, 2 knights, 2 sentinels, 2 banners. It just wants to fight.
Yeah, I saw several games of this. I think it was during the GT, which I think was when you brought Rumil.
Yeah.
But just seeing the work that was being put out by those guys was crazy. One of your games, I think it was against Reclamation of Osgiliath. It was just tearing through Minas Tirith, and I was just like, "Dang, that thing kills really fast." Um,
I will say that was a 50-50 success rate against Reclamation because this list also got tabled by a different Reclamation of Osgiliath list. So,
which I can totally see that because if Boromir just gets going and gets some good combats off, I could see him as long if you don't get that transfix with like the strike up, it could go south very quick. Which that's like you were said earlier when we were talking about tactics. It's like there's so many things that can go right, but there are also so many things that can go wrong. And it's just like if some of the things don't work, it may just not work out, right? Which honestly, in a list, I really don't care that much. As long as they have a chance to win in every game, I enjoy it. So I think Lothlórien's list is balanced enough that it can handle that, especially this list with Haldir having the 3 might, I think can really do that. Is there a
yeah.
reason why because I know you did not like Orphan, which you took to the Masters, and you took Haldir to the qualifier. Is there a reason? Was there any moments that defined you enjoying Rumil less than Haldir?
Well, I think it's especially taking Kelborn as your leader. You don't necessarily want him using, and as your only caster, you don't necessarily want him using his might for strikes. And so if you have Haldir as that second person with a strike, it can be super helpful. It also allows you to play in two places at once. If you've just got Kelborn and Rumil, you kind of want to keep them together, and Rumil isn't as much of a threat on his own. While Haldir being able to threaten that strike, being on his own flank, he can hold down his own objective. And having a bow means he can also be a pain in the same time if he's on a flank. So that's kind of why I like or why I like Haldir. And I think Rumil really benefits from having the mirror and being able to restore two fate, as opposed to just one from Haldir.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
I'm just impressed with like the amount that you can just pack in that
Yeah,
between the banners, the sentinels, the guard, like all of that, and still have a like 38 models is a very healthy model count for
For
this type of
elves,
army at
yeah.
750. Like you can just pack in a lot of punch there. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the most optimized versions of Lothlórien at 750.
I will say I like my 750 better, but that's just because I like the meme that I did. I just absolutely memed on mine, but it definitely does not have the success and definitely will not have the same success that yours does. Because here's the thing, especially for a 6 round tournament, I think that's the optimized balanced list. Because you got a great amount of defense 6, you got all the shooting, you've got the necessary tools in the knights, the
well,
sentinels,
there's only two bows in this list.
which is very interesting, but considering the amount of D6, I think it works. The one thing I might change, and again, this is probably personal preference. If I was taking it, I would probably take like 3 warriors with bows, just because I would be two-handing a lot anyways. So just having
Yeah,
a few more bows. But like honestly, if you're taking two, like at 750, most lists are either going like 1 or 2 bows or none or like 16. So it's like, is there really much of a difference between two with elven cloaks and their elven bows versus five, right? So I don't hate that choice at all. Um,
yeah. I think I would toss at least one guy with a cloak in there to throw on objectives. But I'm definitely leaning into not shooting. Um, I think I heard a podcast from the great uh, from over in the UK where they're like, Lothlórien's just too sit back on your heels, and I was like, let's see if we can change that. So just
which
want to
is
punch people
fair
in the face.
because like we even talked about it a bit earlier on with Lothlórien, you have to be so careful with where you place the list because once you place the list, it doesn't it's not like something where it'll just shoot across the table and grab objectives super fast. So I don't necessarily disagree. I think a lot of Lothlórien players, even in the UK, do need to learn, even if you're taking heavy bows, you do need to run up. Like you can't just sit back and go max shooting for like 2 to 3 turns. You go for one legitimate turn of shooting, maybe a second turn of half movement, but like you do have to get in the position to win the game early because it isn't the most maneuverable or like swing it 8 inches across the table fast. Like marches do come at a cost. But I do really like just the amount of D6, all the tools, the heroes. I love that list.
Thank you.
Alrighty. I don't Trey, should I go a regular build or another funky build? I have two that I'm tempted to choose from.
Here, how about you go one, I go one, and then you can end us off or something.
All right, all
Yeah.
right.
And
I'm gonna go with a 650. I'm gonna go with my 650 list. All right. This one is fun. It's kind of similar to something I did last edition, but I went all out elite on this list. So our leader is Haldir. So you already know this is gonna be an interesting one. He's got the full thing. He's got Elven Cloak, Elf Bow, and Heavy Armor. And in his warband, he has 2 Wood Elf Sentinels, 4 Wood Elf Warriors with Elf Bow, and 2 Galadrim Knights with Shield. In Warband 2, we have Rumil, who also has 1 Wood Elf Sentinel, 3 Galadrim Warriors with Shield, 4 with Shield and Spear, another Galadrim Knight with Shield, and a Guard of the Galadrim Court. And then in our final third Warband, we have a Galadrim Captain with Elf Bow, 3 Galadrim Warriors with Shield, 2 with Shield and Spear, 1 Wood Elf Sentinel, 1 Galadrim Warrior with Banner, one Guard of the Galadrim Court, and one Galadrim Knight. So at 650, we come in at 30 models, but we have 4 Sentinels, 4 Knights, and 2 Pikes, as well as Haldir, Rumil, and a Captain. So we have all sorts of fun little tricks and stuff we can do here. We just don't have a caster in this list. So what do we think?
I love it.
Honestly, I was expecting like just Rumil, Haldir, and then a bunch of pikes and cav with a couple sentinels. When you said like all elite, I do really like that. That actually sounds like something that would be enjoyable to play against as well as with, because you still have some of the tools that make it very entertaining for you with the 4 sentinels. But really, the negative gameplay can come in with Lothlórien when you go into a game, fluff all of your resist spells, and then they control your heroes, then they control your troops with the sentinels. This, it's just good fun. You get the elves that can still kill, because this edition, that two-handed weapons are just that much better. You've got some fun heroes that they're unique. Like Haldir is fun because he can be an absolute glass cannon. Like I've killed him with like 2 regular dudes before. But at the
I
same time,
yeah.
he can also get killed and then turn around and kill an Aragorn with his like last stand blow. Like it's just fun. I really liked it, and I think it's got wheels. Like I think that could do actually decently well. It's got tools, while no casting tools. It's got some decent combat tools.
I would even go as far as to make your captain your leader in this army,
Oh,
because he's got a bow and Haldir's got strike, and so Haldir and
yeah.
Rumil are going to want to be on the front lines and competing against other heroes.
Is
But you're
Haldir a hero of
They're all
they're all
fortitude. They're all
hero fortitude?
fortitude.
Oh,
they're all
then
Yeah.
yeah, I would
captains.
do.
Yeah,
I agree with Eli on
I
that one.
I could also drop the captain. I mean, this sounds dumb, but I could drop him to the wood elf dude to get the cloak then, and literally just hide him at the back and just pew 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 pew. Yeah, this list still has 8 bows and Haldir and a captain with a bow, so it does have some good shots too. So
I might
yeah,
try this list.
it's really fun. I ran one last edition where it was Rumil and Haldir max warbands, and then Fellowship Boromir on
Boromir.
horse.
You're welcome for
So
that fellowship, Boromir.
yeah, that was fun. Just throwing down a Boromir and just killing stuff. But yeah, that was my replacement. Is just add Sentinels and Knights and watch them go. So yeah, it's kind of my fun list.
Actually,
Yeah, I might steal
if that's your goofy list, I'm scared to see what your balance list is.
that.
Okay. Honestly, mine is goofier than that one.
Oh
So
no.
it's 750 points. I actually really like this list. It's 750 points, 38 models. It's got 9 bows, 0 throwing weapons. So I'm just going to go through it. Our leader is Celeborn, which I think is a great leader. And he's got 1 Galadrim warrior with a banner. He's got 1 Galadrim warrior with a shield. So that's our D6. We got the D6 in there. Then we've got 4 Galadrim warriors with bows, 7 Galadrim guards, so that the fight 6 guys, a sentinel. Then we've got a Galadrim captain with 4 Galadrim warriors with shields. So we got some more D6 and 7 Galadrim courts with pikes again.
Ooh.
Then we've got Haldir with heavy armor, cloak, and the bow. So he's got everything. And then he's got 2 knights, a second sentinel, 3 Galadrim warriors with bow, and then 4 more Galadrim court guards.
How many guards
So
do you have?
18. No, yes, 18. So you've got your 2 knights, you've got your 2 sentinels, and then I just took a handful of bows and backed it up with 18 Galadrim court guards with a banner.
Wow.
So the thought is you use the march to put the list in the right position, you use the bows to draw them to you, and then you use your +1 to wound with your banner, and you rack up and just suck it up. And if you lose a fight, you're trapped and you're dead. If you win, they're dead. And chances are you're going to win more than they win, considering you've got the banner, 3 dice, and fight 6.
Wow. I feel like this list is like some Rivendell player insulted you and was like, I'll challenge you to a game, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna bring 18 fight 6 dudes. Enjoy that. I
So
actually like it's a death ball. It
it
yeah.
it is. And here's the thing that actually this is something that I've learned in other lists, specifically Garrison of Athelion. The captain having those four Galadrimors with shields is actually really clutch because push comes to shove, if I need to split up the force for any reason to pick up a second objective and like seize the prizes or something, having the captain that can go with them have a little bit of might, and then D6 with the fight six guys as well. The D6 with the captain is really clutch. So when I've played Garrison of Athelion, I always take one captain with just a tin can wall, just so if there's a choke point that I just really need to hold, I'll put my high defense guys there and just hold. And that's the same idea of adapted here of I've got my more flexible warbands with the knights, with the sentinels, with the magic in these other warbands, and they're going to actually pivot more around the captain's warband that is really going to be my D6 that's going to set where I want it to, and it's just not going to budge. So that's the main idea. The sad reality is if you just don't roll sixes, or if you don't win fights, you will be trapped and you will die. Um, Thankfully for me, if they kill the front rank, then I'll just start shielding with the Galadrim pikemen because they're just annoying. But I think I think we can have some fun with this.
I feel like at this point, I wouldn't even worry about having that D5 on the front rank of Gladrian warriors. Like you're so fragile. Um, you might even just want to have Lothlórien warriors with bows in the front to squeeze one or two models out. Because
That
then
would be an interesting take.
you
Yeah.
might get one or two more models on your front line, which will stop people from wrapping around you
Yeah.
as much.
Or even just doing that, keeping the same model count, but getting a third knight to protect the flanks would also
Yeah,
be clutch. Um, but And honestly, I think this would be one of the few lists that the Sentinels are playing more defense than they are offense, because you're really going to keep them on the flanks, holding up those terror bubbles to make sure that you're not getting those wraps. But this is actually something I do want to try because I really enjoy pikes. Like I really enjoy
yeah.
pikes. And if the Galadrim guys have pikes, why don't we use them, guys? So might as well do a full pike list, right?
I do think it'll struggle against shooting. Like you
It
do
would
have some counter shooting, but
it will die against
yeah.
shooting.
Yeah.
Legolas will just sit there and go, "There's three Galadrim guards. There's three Galadrim guards." It would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Which that is something. I think there would be something to say for switching out Celeborn for Galadriel for that. The issue for me is you have Celeborn there so that you have a pike block with +1 to wound, and
Yeah.
having 3 deep +1 to wound is insane because that's against dwarves. That's like the D8 Iron Hills. That's fives by threes, fours by twos on the front guy. That's consistency right there.
Yeah.
Um, it will just wipe the floor. So if you're in a meta that doesn't have much shooting and you want to have fun, this list is a gimmick list. But I think you could have fun with that list.
I think the only thing, if you wanted to go like the opposite direction from what we said, you could maybe try and drop a model and give the front line Lorien guard, and so
Yeah,
then
I
because they'll probably be two-handing with +2 to wound. If anyone wants a reroll, it's probably those two backed up by pikes.
yeah,
Um, it might take your
I
numbers down a
mean,
bit though.
you can save 1 point by dropping your banner bearer down to a Lothlórien warrior.
There we go.
um, did I hear your Galadrim captain didn't have a bow?
he does not have a bow. Which
But you gave Haldir the elfin cloak.
I did. And honestly, the reason is I've played so many games with Michael, and Michael never leaves home without that cloak that I was like, oh, Halder, you just take everything. Because I'm so used to
Yeah,
Michael taking him with everything because he's always his leader. So if he's your leader, you
Yeah.
want the Elven Cloak.
occasionally.
Now that I think about it, yes, that is like the ultimate right. If I had to change anything right now, it would be the Elven Cloak to the Galadrim Captain for a bow. Because honestly, even there, then you have 9 bows plus the expert shot on Haldir, their Elven shooting. If you That would be like the one time I would say you could call a heroic shoot if it's desperate. Because like if you could just delete some of their archery before they can decimate your fight six, might be worth a point of might. And at that point, you've got 10 shots with a few points of might behind it. You could do some damage there. Um, so I think that might be worth it. And actually, going further into that note, you suggested maybe even dropping those front line of archers down to the just the Lothlórien archers. That point, you could even be better at shooting theoretically because they're all of a sudden taking the -1 to shoot you if they're targeting your archers, which obviously they should just target the Galadrim Guard. But more than that, if you're behind cover, you get the reroll ones on your shooting, which can make it even more reliable. I think you could have some fun with a pike list.
I
It
mean,
might even
only
be it might be better at lower points, just Celeborn and a captain at like 500. Because then there's just less things that can like legitimately threaten you. Even up here, like 750, I think there's just enough things that can deal with it. But I like my gimmick lists, so this is something I do want to play.
I mean, there's only 4 armies in the game that can have pikes, so I mean, if you have them, you got to take advantage of them, you know?
Last edition, I ran the fiefdoms allied with them so that I could just
Yeah, that's
pike
that's
pike.
just you're the reason we got rid of alliances. I'm just gonna say that.
I only had one list that had 6 alliances and one 700 list. It's fine.
Yeah.
Could do
It was
better, I
funny.
think.
That's what I'm saying. It was funny though. That list, it was like Denethor, Bandabras Took, Arathorn, Haldir,
I have
Angbor the
no idea.
Fearless. It was the funniest list ever. But it could actually work because it had Fight 6 everywhere, tons of heroic strike, like 12 points of might. It was hilarious.
Avengers Assemble. That's basically what he said.
Basically. Hey, Bandabras Took is a Chad.
All right. Anyone else have any other lists they want to go over?
I'm
I
good.
think all right. I'm gonna finish this off then with my quote unquote balanced list. Um, this one is Wood Elf list. This one I've thought about playing. And it starts off with Galadriel, who's going to be my leader, and she has the mirror with her, and her warband is 5 Wood Elf warriors with bow, 4 with throwing weapons, 2 with spear, 1 guard of the Galadrim court, 1 sentinel, 1 Lorien warrior with banner, and 1 knight with shield. Then you have Haldir with the bow and the cloak, so no heavy armor on Haldir. And he has 3 bows with him, 4 throwing weapons, 2 wood elf spears, guard of the Gladrim court, and a knight. And then lastly, a Lorien captain with 2 bows, 3 throwing weapons, 3 spears, and 1 guard of the Gladrim court. So you come out at 700 points for 38 models. You have 14 bow shots, 11 throwing weapons, and 2 knights, a sentinel, and 3 guards. So pretty stock standard. Run around and just shoot you to death, basically.
Was that Galadriel or was that Celeborn for the leader?
Galadriel, no Celeborn in the
Okay, yeah.
list.
I agree with
What
that pick.
Which at higher points, I would love him just for that writhing vines is so key for being able to stay away. But if anything, I'd probably throw in a Stormcaller for the writhing vines if I needed anything instead of a Celeborn tax. But yeah, I think it's a pretty stock standard, simple list.
Seems pretty solid. I like it.
I mean,
You've,
for Wood
you've got a good
Elves,
leader.
Yeah.
for Wood Elves, I like that. I think that's the one thing with Wood Elves is like finding that balance, which I will say that is much more balanced than the Wood Elf list I wrote. Um, but and I think it's got utility. I think Wood Elves with March is actually like scary because like all of a sudden their throwing weapon threat range is just massive, and if you're copping like 8 of those to the face, like even if they're hitting on 4s, that's still gross.
I mean, I
And
think
there's just yeah.
yeah, that one recon game we played against your survivors, I took all pajama elves, and I had literally a 30-inch line of just one rank deep dudes, and I killed like 15 Lake Town dudes with shooting before I got in combat. So
Yeah, your shooting that game popped off.
if you get the right matchup, it's really hard to beat. But you run into a Men of the West, and you're like, oh, they're G7, they march fast. I get 2 kills before combat, and now you're in combat. So that's where I think this list kind of falls apart is you hit a big old fast shield wall and then basically all your shooting goes down the drain. So,
I will say you beat probably any shooting army out there,
oh,
Hundred
and
100%.
percent.
and low defense hordes. You're just gonna have a field day of mowing them down.
Yeah. Um, yeah. All right. I think that concludes our, like 2.5 hour long-ish episode. Um, Thank you for joining us, Eli. This was super fun.
Thanks
Uh,
for having me.
as always, like, share, subscribe, all that wacky stuff. But we'll see you next time.
Yeah,
Bye.
Lothlórien is good.
It is indeed.